one thing I do want to ask you is terminology.
Yes.
There is so much confusion, even amongst, like when we were doing our presentations at the school, teachers had so many different questions because the language is changing daily.
It really is, yeah.
So I don't feel equipped to really go into the detail. I can tell you what being transgender means for me.
Absolutely.
I can tell you what being a lesbian means for me, but I can't tell you what gender nonconforming, gender queer.
Yeah.
I can't put it into perspective as well as possibly somebody that's done it for a while. Could you
Yes.
maybe
Sure.
enlighten our audience, please?
I can try my best. So,
Thank you.
you know, there's some important caveats though. So one is I just, want to identify too that as someone who's an ally and who's straight and cis, like I, can't speak for anyone. And one thing that I always say, and you've heard us say when we're doing trainings, is that we hate labels and we hate boxes because oftentimes those are created for people like me, cis straight people, to understand something about someone, so that when someone says they're pansexual, well then I can in my mind put them in that pansexual box and then be a little less scared of, how they experience romantic and sexual attraction. So oftentimes I think those boxes are not created with the spirit of like people can just be who they are in all of their complex intersecting identities.
You don't have to fit into one of those boxes.
Exactly.
You can fit in all of them or none of them.
Right.
Okay.
And that said, I mean, I think what's happening now is as more folks are claiming identities, naming identities, is it is giving people an opportunity to. I mean, there is some merit, or I've heard people talk about, yes, Kyle, that's wonderful that you don't think boxes are important and blah, 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 blah. But, when I first heard the word transgender, I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like, that I finally have a word to describe what's going on with me. So everything's complex. But essentially the sort of way that I train on it is helping folks understand sexual orientation and gender identity.
Okay.
And you've probably seen our gender unicorn about 1 million times. But the gender unicorn breaks it out into gender identity, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, gender assigned at birth, and then romantic and emotional attraction and sexual attraction. And so depending on where you are, and then it sort of has a male masculine scale, of feminine female scale, and then an other scale, which isn't great terms, but basically giving folks room to kind of not identify as male or female or both or whatever. And so it's just an opportunity to sort of plot in a way that folks can feel like, whatever the terms are, that, all of these intersect in a way.
Right.
But naturally, as we get into, sort of the LGB aspects of it, lesbian is someone who's a woman, or someone who identifies as a woman who is sexually and romantically attracted to other women. Same thing for men who are sexually and romantically attracted to other men is gay, and a lot of folks in the community that I know who are lesbian women or whatever, identify as gay women. There's a lot of sort of movement there. So often I hear people say, oh, kids these days, they're coming up with all of these new terms and identities, and I think that that's sort of a misnomer, because I think, as more acceptance comes, more people can kind of explore and think about who they are, and I have no doubt that pansexuality and asexuality and genderqueer people have been around for eons.
Right.
It's just a matter of that term not existing, so, or not being what we call it now. So, the other things I'm always eager to sort of raise awareness around. Obviously, transgender is someone who doesn't identify with their gender assigned at birth. So there are a couple things I always make sure to raise awareness around, and one of those is that their asexuality is a very commonly misunderstood term. So asexuality is someone who doesn't experience any sexual or romantic attraction. And some there are some other terms where folks experience romantic attraction without sexual attraction, but for the friends that I have who do identify as asexual or aromantic, is basically that's not because they haven't met the right person. They just don't experience those things.
Right.
And then,
and if I can clarify,
yes.
An asexual person could be cisgender, transgender,
Absolutely.
gender nonconforming. The two are
right.
two separate things.
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I think about gender and sexuality, they're sort of different and also intertwined, right? So someone could be born a male, identify as a woman, be a trans woman who's attracted to other women, and that person could identify as, gay or lesbian. So your gender has to do with your sexuality and who, what term you sort of claim as your identity. But it's complicated, and that's why one of the other caveats is, whatever someone identifies as, it doesn't tell you that much about them. They might be a gay trans man, and then that doesn't tell you that much about them. It's important to kind of do your own research as an ally, or if it's a good friend, to be able to ask, like, what's that like? How's that going? Have you met someone?
Right.